Health Chasers, achieving high health and happiness through the practices of self-experimentation.
The main, absolute number one thing that I wanted to talk about is this concept of the energy field around the body. And I guess it's been referred to in history as the aura, the human aura, the aura of the body. And it's like, I think of it as a magnetic field that extends outside the skin a little bit, maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches, maybe a foot. I think it depends on how strong, what nutrients you have kind of coursing through your blood. It makes this magnetic field that extends off of the body, and it interacts with the environment in kind of weird ways.
Mm-hmm. And the bulk of what we're going to be talking about is all the toxic substances that arise, that are on Earth, that affect your energy field in some negative ways, right?
I know. I wish when you say it like that, I wish we could talk about like all the wonderful ways that this affects you, but it's like it's just all horrible and toxic.
Yeah, you do seek pleasure foods at times, and also it's a combination of seeking pleasure foods, but also you're in really good health, so you think you can get away with these foods, like such as going out to eat, having Mexican food, having pizza. What's your thought process when you're on the plan of what you usually do, but then you're challenged with these things?
So I guess the whole thing that we're doing here is we're kind of discussing like good health. Like everything is like really good health. That's kind of the focus of everything that we're talking about and doing here. We'll talk about bad health, but just in a way of getting to like really high level health, like high level performance, like whatever Kobe used to be in the fourth quarter of the game, that kind of health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you get into the zone. I guess sports analogies are good because you'll just get in your everyday life. You get into the health zone. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're surfing on top of a wave where you can't really get much higher than that. You can't get much better than that. You can't go like, higher on the wave or something. You're just on the wave, and pretty much all you can do is fall off the wave. And you get into this mode of when you're doing really good health-wise where you think that you can do and eat anything. And, you're just like euphoric, and you'll go just randomly think that going to a fast food is like totally okay, and you'll keep the euphoria going even if you just go eat some fast food multinational chain.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that that's not gonna happen. That'll like pretty much instantly knock you out off of that wave of good health. And this has happened to me countless times. I know it's happened to you just so many times.
Mm-hmm.
That it's become really annoying. But we've had experiences of where we kept that wave going for like long periods of time. And so obviously the goal is to just be on the wave endlessly in life.
Yeah. So to be on this wave, I love that metaphor. Do you have to sacrifice what your pleasure is versus being on top of the wave? Because you talk about sometimes forcing these meals down because you've had success with meal A, B, C, but then when you go out to eat, or you're challenged with going out to eat with family, whatever the situation, you can order the best choice or whatever that may be, but that could potentially set you off that wave. Why does our body want that food if it's going to set us off the wave?
And we'll definitely get back to the energy field, because the environment will affect you in such a way where your body is getting the wrong intuition signals. So like the environment will tell you that you need to eat, a fungus thing, bread or something like that. And then you'll go and eat that fungus bread with whatever, and all of a sudden it'll totally screw you over, it'll knock you off the wave. But it was really just an environmental signal that told you to eat fungus. And usually that's some sort of acetic acid derived thing. But yeah, sometimes I think it's like 50% your intuition can like lie to you in a way.
Mm-hmm.
when I don't think it's broken intuition. I think there's either you have intuition or it's low intuition, but the intuition can be based on improper signals that because we live in a man-made environment the vast majority of the time. So that man-made environment is what's giving us signals, and our body's interpreting that. So as far as the energy field, whatever comes within your magnetic field, basically the material from that thing, it gives your body a signal to flush that thing like into your bloodstream and like utilize it. And depending on how much it interacts with your field, let's say you're in salt water swimming, you're completely immersed in that, so that thing is going to really like take over and really flush out and just be utilized and then possibly depleted. So I shouldn't have brought up salt water because I don't actually really know the effects of like being immersed in salt water. I think it's generally good effects.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the man-made stuff, you're sitting on cushions that are foam that are permeated with acetic acid. So they're giving you a signal for your body to create acetic acid, and I think that's your body uses fungus to create that acetic acid. And
Okay.
if you have you have a spoon in your hand, that spoon is most likely going to be made with stainless steel, and so you're interacting with chromium, nickel, and iron, and possibly some other stuff. Maybe there's some carbon in there, maybe some other stuff that I'm unaware of. So even just touching the spoon, your body starts flushing out whatever reserves you have of chromium and nickel, and then I think to a lesser extent iron. But in that case, like the iron wouldn't necessarily be harmful because your body uses iron in large amounts, and it always it has a lot of iron, it uses a lot of iron. But chromium and nickel, I don't believe nickel at this time. It doesn't seem like the body uses nickel for anything. I think it just is estrogenic and it's just harmful, gives you like a headache. But chromium is used by the body, and it's necessary to the vitamin D activation process. But when you're holding that steel in your hand for long periods of time, or you're touching like large amounts of the stainless steel, the chromium will get flushed out so fast and so quickly, it'll be through your blood and just like depleted within a short period of time, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. And you don't even have to be holding that spoon that whole time. It could have just been the signal to set off the usage of that. So it's almost like the food that you hold in your hand sends the signal to start digesting it before you even eat it.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? That's
And
probably where this effect comes from, and like why it's been okay for however many thousands of years human beings have been around. Like it's worked. But now we're interacting with all this man-made crap, and it's just throwing us haywire.
oh wow. So the energy field relationship to your environment and the things that you touch can dictate the almost affect every sense of intuition in your body of false signaling or preventing you from actually knowing what you want to eat for your own body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then so that's where we could get the 50% of the time your intuition could be wrong. I know when I want cheese. I know when I want fruit, but I don't know when I want potatoes. You know.
Well, if you got that, I don't know, what do you call it, starch desire back. The starch desire kind of comes and goes, and you generally want to have starch desire. So that's something that you kind of want to work to get back.
Yeah, I think half the time I just force these foods down because I know that these foods are
Yeah.
what my body needs, and I think you get tired of being in this false signal state. And then also what I was going to say was, back in the 50s, you didn't have all these food choices at your beck and call. I mean, yeah, you could probably go to the store and get, something, but we're talking about, in our present moment in time, we basically have Netflix of food choices. We can sit
Yeah.
around thinking about what we feel like we want to eat, but is that based on pleasure, or is that based on our nutrient intake, what we need? Or
Yeah,
maybe
it's
both.
if you look at the ancient people's diets, or at least as far as like Weston Price wrote in his books, he described the people that they'd have like 10 foods, and that's all they'd eat, and they did great. So let's say they had 10, 20. That's just what they ate every day. They pretty much included that food every day, as long as it was in season, because some of them were seasonal based. And he described people like having a milk that was high in vitamin K in the spring and whatnot, and they're kind of like got that nutrient from the spring, and hopefully it's pretty small nutrient, so you can hypothetically store a ton of it.
Hmm.
But these people did really well. They were really healthy. The people, as far as the spring milk drinkers, that was the Swiss that he described, and they were known for being, the men were known for being like physically large and strong. The Vatican always wanted to have them be the guards, so it's like the Swiss guard, I think to this day, at the Vatican.
I've often wondered if there were foods in the season that you weren't supposed to eat, and because now they're artificially made, we can eat them any
Yeah.
season we want. But I've always wondered how that plays a part in our health performance if we completely stay away from these foods and during this season and only eat these foods during this season.
I really don't know about that. Everything I've done in the last decade has been to try to have like a steady, non-seasonal. Don't pay attention to the season stuff at all. Like I've cut out peaches because peaches are only available in the summer, and so that's not useful to me. I need everything in my diet to be year round. And I'm not 100% positive that I have the best strategy ever, but I think in general the year round strategy is gonna be more high performance over the years. For me, it works a lot better if I try and go with seasonal, because like almost everything the season is summer. You know what I mean? So you just stop eating in winter. Is that the plan?
Well, you get less sun. So
That's true.
I don't know how that affects different things, but there's also different elements that you get less of. I would assume different UVs, and that can affect different pigments of food, I guess you would say.
That's true. That's true. There's some things that there's like winter squash is known. Obviously, it's called that because I mean, I think you can grow it year round, but perhaps does well in the winter. And then there's like winter grains that do well in the winter.
So, would you say every time you're in amazing great health, does that lead to your downfall to make bad health choices?
It kind of feels like that. Obviously, you're saying that because you've experienced that, right? You, is that what you feel every time you're in good health? It's like it leads to crap decision making, and then eventually you just get destroyed from bad food.
Yeah, pretty much.
And is it usually like indulgent food, like a fast food or just some extravagant restaurant thing that you wouldn't normally have in your routine?
Exactly, exactly. Things are going really well, and you are possibly on vacation or in a place of fun and adventure, and you really associate your routine with very monotonous. You have a
Yeah.
very repetitive routine when it comes to how you set your meal plan and things of that nature. So when you're in the zone, sometimes it's random. Sometimes you're exploring into new territory that you've never been in before,
Yeah.
and it kind of leads you into new experimental things of, well, I wonder if I can get away with this today. And sometimes I do. Like for example, we were on a vacation last summer. We were making our rounds in Florida, and I think I told you this, but I don't really drink alcohol very often. And we were eating some seafood and out in the sun all day, and had a great time. I'm like, I wonder if I'll do okay if I have a beer. And I think I had one, and I felt really good. And then I had one more, and I felt really good. And then I stopped. I didn't want to drink anymore because I knew there was no point. I had already felt as good as I could possibly feel. And I think that's the problem with human beings, or at least myself, is in this amazing zone, or just true happiness, and you're experiencing everything that you can experience, and you just don't want to leave this experience level of this certain level of health, and you almost don't think that you can keep it going, in the sense.
Yeah, that's a very real phenomena. I like to think, because we're kind of describing the being on that wave as just euphoria, and so it's like you get on the wave and it's just euphoria. But I think that's just one part of the best hour of your month.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one part of it, and so if you make your meals more complex, you can get more little systems activated and more effects popping up. And so it's like, I think you would want a combination of like euphoria with a couple other things, and one of them is like some sort of retention of self-control in some way,
Yeah, some logical sense.
You don't want to get like a kid just get lost in the fun, start yelling and screaming at their parents and demanding that they stay in the fun zone. And it's like, the wiser person realizes when the fun's done, it's done. As far as us, though, it would be getting whatever nutrient is going to create the sensation of more mindfulness, even while you're having euphoria. Mm-hmm. So I know that exists because I've been in this zone for long periods of time, months at a time previously, because I've done really accidentally healthy lifestyle. Like being in the military is sometimes a very healthy lifestyle. Like if your just job is just to work out all day, and you work out like twice a day, and then that's pretty much it. Like no one messes with you outside of that. You can have, and there's a big group of you, and it's, you have fun like most of the time. You can have a really, really healthy lifestyle doing that, and not even eating very healthy. But of course that was in the prior to smartphones era. So
yeah, that's true. Very true. Can you tell me about an experience that you've had where you've been in really good health, and then you've made that maybe that bad choice? How do you bounce back from a bad health experience? Like after being maybe multiple days, maybe like you're talking about maybe a gut destroyer, kidney clogger, etc. What experiences have you had?
I guess in a way it depends on what the problem is. Like if the problem's you clogged your kidneys, you gotta go towards that. The problem's not necessarily fungus if your kidneys are clogged, so you need to unclog them. So you're kind of on a bad road if your kidneys are cloggable to that extent. But if that's happening, your route is probably trimethylglycine, possibly spinach if you're using the food form, or some other foods have it as well. Glycine's pretty good at clearing out kidneys, or just not eating for a while, working out, that sort of stuff can help just clear stuff out, because it just moves, stuff moves through the body naturally. As far as fungal infection, I got my protocol for dealing with fungal infections that happen. Unfortunately, that's kind of the number one thing I think just any human being out there deals with, is just pop up fungal infections that take over and kind of stop whatever system that they're in. And in that case, I used to do targeted for whatever system, but now if there's any hint of fungal infection, I'll do I'll do a system, which is copper that's been sitting in a copper vessel for a long time. I'll drink that, and then I'll have part of the antifungal protocol is copper acetate.
Okay.
To get into the spots where only acetate goes.
And that's vinegar.
Yeah.
Okay. And this could be a single drop of vinegar?
Yeah, I think it's actually a fifth of a drop copper acetate in 4/5 water. I think that's what I'm using now. So it's extremely small bit of vinegar.
So one drop could be too much.
I think it is too much, yeah.
Oh man,
way too much.
I
didn't tell you that part.
I was wondering. I'm like, how am I gonna?
Hey, to get back to the energy field, because this kind of stuff's just popping in my mind as we're going here. We really just touched the iceberg as far as that topic. It's just so massive. There's so many things that you interact with that are affecting you probably negative. Like a lot of people's, there's so much stainless steel around. Like people's, fridge is stainless steel, and it's like, so you're interacting so much with stainless steel. Most people are always interacting with stainless steel.
So when you're interacting with stainless steel, are you automatically thinking, I've got to get this back?
No, I don't generally do more than one a day
Okay.
because I don't know. I actually haven't experienced any negativity since I started using pure chromium either.
And you mentioned how there's the lymph system and how that affects when you do this the antifungal routine.
I am just guessing, but it's educated guessing that acetate interacts with the lymph system in ways that most nutrients do not. And so I'm speculating that the copper acetate is killing microbes in the lymph system. But that's really speculation. I know that it's going into a place that most nutrients don't go to, and it is killing microbes there. So I'm guessing it's the lymph system. Perhaps it's a different system.
You mentioned how fungus basically just hijacks or it may hijack in theory your sense of taste or your intuition, and even would you even say your sugar cravings or your certain foods,
Yeah.
like the fungus wants those foods, and maybe that's not what you actually want, but the fungus is actually saying, give me these foods, I want pizza.
Yeah, it's really weird because other nutrients, you have them and then the body like doesn't ask for that nutrient again. But it seems with fungal infections, your body is telling you, go eat, pizza that has yeast, go eat this sandwich, go eat bread, go, eat all these yeast things because there's a fungal infection. And it can also be sugars, so go eat cookies because you have this fungal infection. And I think usually the sugar one, I'm guessing it's usually fungal infection in the brain that's calling for sugar. I could be wrong about that too, or maybe it's just multiple places. It leads to they can lead to that depending, because you can get the fungal infections in the gut, in the skin, through like soil. You interact with soil, you get a infection in the skin that trickles out into other places like the gut and the blood and probably the lymph. So yeah, it can get in all these different places, and with the protocol that I mentioned, it does seem to just come right in and knock out wherever it might be. So I haven't had to add method or anything like that. Like the methods seem to really do well.
And that's only when you are experiencing really negative symptoms to go to that process antifungal routine, correct?
I kind of just do it whenever I feel like it. It's actually interesting because it's also like just a way to utilize copper. So it has like that secondary function of like, hey, you're getting depleted in copper, and actually that ties perfectly back into energy field because most of our wiring is made of copper, and that is broadcasting this signal that's interpreted by your body as, oh, we have plenty of copper, let's start flushing out, using, and otherwise getting rid of our copper stores. So you just interact with wires, and probably wires that have a load running through them, that are being used to give electricity to a device. You're depleting your copper just being around that wire. And the closer you are, the worse it is. So if you're like, even just flipping a switch can do that, because your fingers are so close to the wire. Any switch that you flip, you're pretty much going to be within 2 or 3 inches of the wire. And there's something called flyback voltage, where the split second you turn a switch on, the voltage is way higher for just a super split second. than it normally is, and then it goes back to normal after that split second. So the signal to use copper that's coming from that switch is just like blasted out 5 to 10 times stronger than it would normally be by just resting your hand on that switch, by you actually like flicking the switch on. So anyway, that's why like that kind of comes from Ray Pete, that we're all depleted in copper. But I think I've stumbled on that reason why is because it's sending our body the signal to flush it out and utilize it, and then it's telling the body, hey, there's no problem depleting it because we got more, but you don't actually have more. So it's like a false signal. So it ties into like all these different surfaces. I'm just looking around my place right now. So I got this stove that has this black, I think it's black oxide coating to whatever the metal is on the stove, and a lot of stoves have that, or a lot of just metal stuff in the house has that. Like doorknobs have it, your gate has it. There's so many things that have this coating that I'm told, or I read it's black oxide, but I'm not positive what the chemical structure is of it. But it gives you pretty horrible symptoms. Basically, if you're holding something a metal covered in this black oxide, you basically can end up with hypoxia symptoms really quickly. So, I don't know if it's your body somehow dumping oxygen reserves, but that kind of feels like what it's doing. And so that oxide coating to me is like pretty much one of the most toxic things that you can interact with. And it's in everything. And it's the best indicator that everything I'm saying this whole episode is true. Because all you need to do is get something that's covered with this black oxide and just put it in your pocket and leave it there and see. It might be 20 minutes, it might be 30, it might be an hour or 2 hours. At some point, you're going to end up with hypoxia symptoms. Hypothetically, unless your magnetic field is so incredibly weak that it's just, hardly even extending outside your body. And that may be... Like, that might be most people. I don't know. Because me and you are doing stuff where all our systems are hopefully getting supercharged. In some ways, they're definitely getting supercharged. So what we experience, other people might not get to experience unless they lift themselves up out of the muck,
Well, yeah, we're not thinking, or at least I didn't used to think of myself as this super electrically charged being that has an energy field or a source around me and is in constant interaction with other particles and things that I can't see. There's been really good things that I've done throughout the day where I pause and I think, why do I have back pain? I'll be walking around in a mall, and I've looked at several instances throughout my life, and I think about why do I have back pain right now? I didn't do anything. I'm just walking around a mall. I'm touching all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden it's been like maybe an hour or something. And all of a sudden I got back pain. And I'm like literally holding my back with my hands. I can't think of any reason. And this kind of stuff is like a silent killer. It's a silent variable that nobody in the health industry is talking about. Not one that I can think of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think most times people have back pain unless they got some sort of skeletal injury. I think most times people talk about mid back pain. It's kidney pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it can come from a couple different things. You could have kidney stones of some sort, and that's just basically clogging. That's just a different form of clogging the kidneys, making things not be able to pass through them easily. And then there's other things like avocado that clogs kidneys. And
yeah, I think, I guess the health and the health experts are talking about it a little bit, but they're not talking about the energy field. Like they talk about grounding and internet, Wi-Fi, and phone towers and things of that nature that we're constantly interacting, which is good. I'm glad that they're making that aware. But people,
it's It's funny. It's crazy. It's crazy that no one has brought this up yet. Maybe there just hasn't been the right mixture of a scientific person with a self-aware person. I guess I am kind of both those things. So, that combination kind of made this noticeable to me. But it took so many years. Like, when did I start talking to you about this? Maybe last year, at the earliest. So I went seven years in full time health investigation and didn't recognize this about my surroundings.
Well, I mean, you knew there was some toxic substances out there. You knew screens were bad. You knew the internet and the phone towers were bad before anybody I knew about was talking about it.
Yeah, like hypothetically, if you're just in the worst possible environmental situation, it doesn't. You could have the best, most pure, organic, grass-fed foods. Everything's perfect about the foods, and you even make meals that are just really well put together. If you're constantly around this oxide coating, you're constantly touching it, interacting with it. You sleep on a bed that's like all foam, and you're interacting with that acetic acid, and your body starts just nonstop dumping out acetic acid. You're not gonna do well, man. You're not gonna do well, unfortunately. That's what I've tried to do in my environment is change all these things. I'm going to all like wood furniture. Everything's wood. If it can. The stove, I just try not to touch it. It's got that black oxide. I just don't touch the stove surface. And a split second touching is not going to severely harm you. I don't use metal pans. I don't use metal cutlery. The only thing metal pretty much in the kitchen is a knife and a cheese grater. Everything is like glass, or some things can be plastic, but
Do we need to figure out a way to make a glass knife?
yeah, it might be possible. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I was actually talking to my next door neighbor. I knew from my wife that his wife was into sewing and making quilts and blankets.
Hmm.
And I asked him a question to ask his wife because I'm looking for a place to buy quilts or things of that nature. Like where would be a good place to look, like physically to go look for a place. Because I'm through looking on Amazon. Like I just don't. It's really hard for me to be patient to scroll through Amazon and find something that isn't made of polyester. But he mentioned something very interesting that I wanted to ask you about. They've actually made some bedding products out of bamboo. What do you think about that?
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, yeah.
That might be good.
I guess they process the fiber from the bamboo just like they would extract it from anything else, like cotton, like kind of the same process, I guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know because I haven't seen anything on the internet that would.
There's a lot of hypothetical good products that are kind of coming out these days. One thing we didn't even touch on was like clothes. Your clothes can be toxic, and obviously you're going to be around that all day. So I'm doing mostly cotton, like 100% cotton shirts, 98% cotton pants, and then the shoes are still a problem. It's polyester shoes with acetic acid foam.
Unless you're wearing the Nomad sandals, like I'm trying to wear those. So what would you say to somebody that is being introduced to that, where they kind of realize that pretty much everything around them is going to be an obstacle of preventing them to be in this badass state of health that we're trying to achieve?
I would tell them, part of me wants to tell them, just forget it. This is just a bad dream. None of this stuff exists. But, when they're ready to actually face it, I would probably give them an order of stuff to take care of. Like your bed, at least the topping on your bed, the stuff that's interacting with your body for at least the top inch or two is one of the most important things to start out with, changing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that with just cotton. Just stack up cotton until you have an inch or two of cotton between you and the mattress or the mattress foam or whatever the hell you got on there. and then I would look at your clothing. And the main thing I would first target with clothing is getting rid of all metals on your clothing, which I know is a pain in the ass. I get it. That's just like really hard and difficult and undesirable. But any metal you have on your clothing, you're dumping out that metal as you go about your day. You're just depleting your stores. So like I right now I have a ton of jeans that have like the metal studs, metal zipper, and a lot of them are brass. So you're literally dumping copper and zinc, two things that are like critical to have that we don't really get enough of in food, and you're just dumping them out of your body for no reason. So when you think of it like that, it's like, yeah, it's okay. Screw these jeans, trash them.
Yeah.
Be your own scientist, verify that what I'm saying is correct. Stick some of this black oxide metal crap in your pocket and just walk around and wait for the hypoxia effects to happen. Mm-hmm. Or that's the most noticeable one. But just, before you go, because you're gonna incur a huge expense here, and it's gonna be a long and difficult process to replace all your stuff. Because probably everyone listening to this has like a foam, at least the top of the mattress is foam, if not the whole mattress, and it's all acetic acid permeated foam. And that and the oxide, they might be endless. Like it might be an endless process of dumping the oxygen out of your body until you die, hypothetically, or your magnetic field drops to a point where it just doesn't interact with that outside material anymore. And then the acetic acid is an endless process, like probably until the energy field drops down, because you're making your own acetic acid through your own fungus. So that's pretty much an endless process, because even if it runs out of like normal food, like that fungus will like probably feed on parts of your body and keep making the acetic acid.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to. I'm trying not to be too negative about this, because if you just do a couple things, you can dramatically improve your environment.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, like I was never able over the years to get consistent results with my health, like day in, day out. As long as I kind of eat generally the same, I'm pretty much getting very, very similar results. If I got the same routine, I get the same results day after day. Before I did this energy field stuff, replacing all these products that I had, I just couldn't get consistency. Just couldn't do it. It's really only within the last year that I've gotten some sort of consistency.
Yeah, I know for me at first, when you laid all this info out, it was overwhelming. It was tough to take in, but once I let it sit for a little bit, because for me, it takes a while for me to accept the information. I hear it, but to practice that information, I don't truly accept it. And then there's a period of, well, I'm not getting any better with my health plan. So maybe I ought to give this a try, Yeah. And so I think it comes for me, the way that I think about all this stuff is that I've always been in longing for another level of health. Not because I'm in bad health, but because I think that there's another place to health that I can go that I haven't been yet on a consistent basis. I think everybody has their good days and bad days, but we want majority really high level good days only. And that's kind of what we're obsessed with, right? So once I got that mentality, I accepted this as, well, this is just a problem that I'm going to have to solve, just like anything else. Just like trying to get raw milk or raw cheese or whatever.
Yeah, it is possible to have those extended really good periods. Like I had one recently while traveling. Several days that were amazing. So it's totally possible. Like not even all that difficult. It's just like we've muddled it up. We've muddied the waters with these electronic devices and 5G towers and whatever wacky thing we think of that always comes back to hurt us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the clothes, The bedding is probably two of the most important. Oh, hats. A lot of people wear hats that may or may not have metal. I know I had a shade hat that I had to actually cut the metal little buttons, because those buttons connected to make the hat almost look like Crocodile Dundee hat.
Yeah.
And then you could pull the buttons out, and then it would just be kind of like a fishing shade hat. But I had to cut those off. And my family made fun of me because now I have this hat with a bunch of holes in it. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I had this straw hat that I loved. Oh, you've seen it. We've gone tube and I wear this hat like every single time.
Yeah.
I love that hat, but it had like this piece of steel around the rim of it, and so I'm like, it actually gave me a headache every time I wore it, but I never put it together that it was the hat doing that. And so I cut that piece out, and it's like all around the hat, and so it became this crazy Huckleberry Finn hat, and then it got squashed. It got, it's trampled a bunch of times, and eventually I'm just like, all right, this hat's out of here. Throw it away.
Gotta retire.
But yeah, hats, whatever's on your head is having the most effect, because the highest energy field is around your head, especially if you have metal up there, metal sunglasses or something. You're quickly dumping that type of metal out of your body, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough variable to consider, because you can easily disregard that and almost make up excuses on why that's not a variable based on your own current health state and where you're at. But if you're after another level like we are, you're gonna take this into a consideration, especially getting into your 40s. You're definitely gonna think about it when you get in your 50s, because that's just when shit goes downhill. And I don't know about you, but I still want to be able to, be competitive with my kids if they decide they want to beat me in a sport. Like, no, I'm not having it. Like, you're not going to outrun me. You're not going to, I know at some point my youngest son is going to be able to, just take me on physically anytime he wants. But I would like to make that as hard on him as possible.
Yeah, he's got a lot of years before that happens.
I don't know, man. It just I
or at least a year.
Yeah. Like you're not supposed to trust them. They're untrustworthy people.
The centenarians?
Yeah, that's the word. And
why not?
Just because every time they do a bit on them, they don't talk about what they did to be lasting that long and that good of health. They don't ever talk about it. They're like, oh, I didn't do anything specific.
Oh, because they probably don't know. Like, they remember yesterday, but they don't know what they consumed. Right. What were the environmental factors? But
they didn't have any environment. That's the key. They didn't have any environmental factors back then. They weren't. The soil wasn't convoluted like it is today. There weren't cell phone towers, back in their day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So the environmental component was a completely different animal back then. And
dude, I don't even know if we would be doing this podcast now if it wasn't for smartphones. You know what I mean? Because my health in the 2000s was really, really good overall. Had bad moments, but then smartphones came along, and it's literally 2010, 2011 came around, and I started having all sorts of problems with health. And I got my first smartphone in 2010. So people say there's no correlation. It's I was getting older too, but I don't believe it. People can say that, but I'm not going to believe it.
You also mentioned you had some rules for eating out.
So I guess the main rule is just don't eat restaurant meat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure about seafood. I haven't actually tried restaurant seafood yet, except for the sushi. But that's just, as far as just the normal types of meat, I completely and utterly avoid them. That's, if you eat restaurant meat, that's the perfect way to get, if there's a negative effect from the meal, you're going to make that negative effect last for 2 or 3 days if you have the meat. So yeah, I've been going to like Mexican places and I'll get usually enchiladas because I think they're baked instead of like fried on a griddle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So if they fry it, it's fried in an oil. That's just how it's going to be. But I think if they bake it, hypothetically, they don't need, because they're just using the oil like as a kind of functional thing for them, so things don't stick and they don't have to clean as much. So if you can get something that's baked, I think generally it might not have the PUFA that the other stuff will. And then I just get like cheese or spinach enchiladas, or usually like cheese and spinach. That's the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, the rules are basically no restaurant meat.
Avoid vinegar-based sauces.
Yes, that was the second one. Yeah. That's another thing that can really screw you up the whole next day, where you spend the whole next day trying to get back on track. Just don't do anything with vinegar in it if you can possibly avoid it, and certainly don't overdo. Like if say you take a bite into something and it's like, oh, there's some vinegar in there. Just, okay, you had that bite and like that's it. You're done with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been having just pretty good success. Like no lasting long-term negative effects. I don't even think anything has lasted into the next day. Like maybe I don't feel perfect that night, but usually I still do feel pretty good. Even like with the sushi, it was just some negativity that night, maybe a little bit into the morning, but that was sushi. That's definitely not. You can only do that, every once in a while.
Yeah, you did mention like vinegar or acetic acid-based foods combined with oxalates, such as spinach, can actually have a positive result.
Oh yeah. There's a stage in the Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle, where the wheel turns to oxaloacetate. And as far as I can tell, that's just oxalic acid and acetic acid when they combine. So one of the things you can do for kidney stones is take in a little bit of vinegar. If you have too much, you're going to destroy your gut lining, and it's not going to help you. But a little bit can remove some of that kidney stone. But in general, if you can get a meal to where that meal causes you to pull in oxalic acid and start sending that into the bloodstream, and then at the same time you get the same kind of stream of acetic acid, you get basically the same sort of mini euphoria that alcohol drinking people get, because that's the effect of alcohol. That's like the big secret. I don't know why no one's figured it out before. For people who have stored oxalate, drinking alcohol gives them this euphoric effect as they complete that stage of the citric acid cycle. For people who do not have stored oxalate in that moment, drinking alcohol is a horribly negative thing, usually. And that's when people get gut problems from alcohol. It's when they get it gives them a headache, or it just makes them feel bad in general. That's, in my opinion, that's why those people did not have stored oxalate when they started drinking.
Wow. Okay.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
And it's a lot of human things are just hilarious in light of like new health information, because it's like the macho thing for like young men to like take such pride in out drinking their friend or whoever, and it's like, dude, you basically just could outdrink them because you had more stored oxalate in your system when starting drinking. Or, you know what I mean? Or you had a better ability to pull on demand oxalate out of the food as you kept drinking. So yeah, I guess you're hypothetically like in a better health state than your friend, but it's still, you're like making your friend feel bad for just this minor health occurrence that it doesn't mean anything.
No, that's an interesting theory, and I like if you could figure out a way to create that euphoric feeling without the alcohol, because I think
Yeah, I did it the other day. I think maybe you don't remember. I told you, or this was like 2 months ago when we had Mexican food that one time. I've gotten a bit of that effect. I was basically eating spinach enchiladas, and there was like, they put on right on top of it, so I couldn't really get it off. uh, some sort of mild vinegar sauce, like not a ton of vinegar,
Mm-hmm.
but the spinach is one of the things that the lutein in there helps you pull in oxalate. So if you're in a good health state, and I was in really good health that day, so I was feeling really good and everything was working good in the body, and so I had active oxalic acid getting pulled in as this acetic acid was getting digested, and I got that euphoria like as we were sitting there talking over the meal, and it lasted like a good like at least an hour. So you can do that same exact thing. You don't need alcohol. Not that I'm saying don't drink if you want to, but there's so many negative effects of alcohol.
Yeah, no, for sure. We haven't really talked about phones or screens and how that affects the magnetic field that we have. But I'm sure we've mentioned it in the previous episodes. But talk a little bit about that real quick, and maybe some solutions that people can kind of go into if they want to fix some health problems like that.
Well, one of the things that touch screen on a phone is particularly horrible. It's the technology is called capacitive touch, I think. And so it literally uses the body's electricity to operate the screen. So it's just constantly pulling charge out of your body. And the body can't make all that much charge. Like we run off tiny, tiny little bits of electricity. That's making this whole, sack of bones we got be able to do all this crazy stuff based on just tiny, tiny, tiny little bits of electricity. So to just be wasting all these millivolts on this touch screen is just like criminally whoever invented these things and put them out there should just really be repenting right now that they did that, because it's been horrible for humanity. As far as solutions, there is a technology out, a new kind of screen that's like a pressure sensitive touch with a pen screen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made for drawing, but hopefully we're going to be able to adapt it to this burgeoning good health community.
But
hopefully if they could, if I could have my way, they would come out with an e-ink smartphone with this pressure. I think it's called Wacom pressure sensitive screen, where you don't have to use a human finger to do it. Because sometimes people's fingers literally run out of electricity. If the person's in bad health, if they call it zombie finger, because their finger will not operate the screen, dude.
Man, I'm curious to see what results you get with that, because if you get good results, hands down the kids are gonna have those. So my kids will be all over that.
Dude, they hypothetically can be so lucky. They just missed out on this whole decade or two of just bullshit, basically, by just not having been of age where they interacted with these bullshit 15 years or whatever. Hopefully, fingers crossed for them.
Mm-hmm.
We're good. I need to get outside and move my bod.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, man. Until next time.
All right.
Peace.